All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Fall of Cybertron Voyager class Grimlock. And yeah, this is an okay figure. I've talked about it in a few previous videos about how they were really having a problem with like plastic shortage or plastic prices or something to the like around this time. And as a result, a few of the toy lines really suffered. And Fall of Cybertron was definitely one of those where like a lot of the figures just felt a little bit low on plastic, a little bit thin in terms of the plastic, a little bit not that advanced in terms of the engineering, just a little bit cheap compared to previous generations figures. And yeah, unfortunately that does affect Grimlock here. He's not one of the worst ones. I'd say the Bruticus guys are really, really where it hits the most, but there's definitely a few cut corners here with this figure. And yeah, still, it was a fun figure at the time. Like this was the first time we really got like a Voyager Grimlock, so it was, it was a good stand-in for the time, but it definitely has not aged well compared to some of our newer Grimlocks. But yeah, here he is in his dinosaur mode from the Fall of Cybertron game, and yeah, it's okay. I'd say like from the side, the biggest issue is just that his tail is like really, really chunky, just because they folded up the legs to be, like part of the tail. So he's just got this like massive, like chubby tail compared to the rest of his body. But then the other problem with him is that if you turn him around, he's pretty much completely hollow underneath. Like they just didn't give him a stomach at all, which is it really does not look that good when handling him. And then yeah, proportions, I mean, they were kind of trying to go like part way in between like a realistic T-Rex proportions and then like the stupid 80s T-Rex that Grimlock typically turns into. So as a result, he looks, I don't know, just a little bit dumpy in my opinion. Like if it was okay for the time, but yeah, we've definitely gotten better looking Grimlocks since then. But yeah, he comes with a couple accessories here. He comes with this very cool looking sword and shield from the game. They don't quite scale with him perfectly, like they're a little bit too small, but still, it's nice to get these accessories. They are really really cool accessories nonetheless. For storage, you are supposed to just kind of peg them onto the side of his legs and call it a day, which is a shame, especially considering how much real estate he's got underneath here. It feels like that could have been utilized in some way, but yeah, I mean, I hate that, but like also this is hardly a problem with just him. Like pretty much every Grimlock we've had, even Studio Series 86, is just like, yeah, just peg the weapons onto the side. That doesn't look ridiculous at all. So I hate it, but it's not just a him problem. But yeah, he does have a one other pretty cool gimmick in this mode where he actually has a little light up feature, which is fun to see, where if you pull back this little lever, it opens his mouth and then it lights up his eyes and the inside of his mouth to kind of show that fire breath, and it also illuminates the Autobot symbol that he's got on the top there in this little line, and I feel like that works pretty well. I was kind of surprised to see that still works after all these years, and it's it's a little bit flickery, but still, it is pretty cool. Now, as a result of that, you can't actually like pose him with his mouth open just because the joints are so loose just to accommodate that gimmick, but it's still a neat feature. In terms of other articulation, his little arms here are on ball joints at the shoulders, so they can rotate around like that and rotate out to the side. The legs, you can use the like shoulder joints for the legs, but they are kind of like locked into place for dinosaur mode, so you're really supposed to leave the hips just kind of where they are. But he does have a thigh swivel and then a knee joint here, and then I guess you can kind of use the toe joints there, but I don't really know how useful that's going to be without any of the like actual hip joints. Like you pretty much just have him standing there, and you could get him like one more click up if you want him to look like more of a like upright or less of an upright dinosaur, but I don't know, then he's kind of looking down, so I just kind of prefer like that. But none of it looks amazing, but he does have some nice detail on him. Like I like the like they did actually put a decent amount of paint apps and stuff on this figure. It just feels a little bit hollow, all things considered. Like they picked out this like whole grill section on his shoulder / thigh there in the red, and they got the little grills here picked out in red, and then this little detail there. Like that definitely feels like a lot of the details that they would skip out on nowadays. But yeah, in terms of the actual plastic, he's a little bit light for a Voyager. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. I figured his robot mode would be more relevant here, so you could see how he scales in Dino mode with average size deluxes. He pretty much comes up to close to their eye level, which is, you know, definitely too small for Grimlock. I definitely think leader class is a better look for Grimlock, but you know, at the time, even getting a Voyager one was pretty exciting because like the only kind of updated Grimlock that we'd had in years was like the Deluxe Classics one, which, you know, didn't really, the robot mode didn't really transform anything like the original Grimlock. So it's still, this guy was like a big improvement at the time, at least in terms of like having a more G1-esque Grimlock. But yeah, that's definitely still a little bit too small. And then for some other Grimlocks, here he is with the Power of the Primes Grimlock, who's about the same size. And yeah, I mean, neither of them look great for different reasons, but I still feel like I prefer this guy's alt mode a little bit, even though he's got like the awkward tail too, and like the just, you know, 30-degree bend in his body. But yeah, obviously the one to really go with if you want a good looking Grimlock is of course going to be the Studio Series 86. I mean, that's no surprise there. Just scale wise looks a lot better, looks a lot more, you know, proportional to what we consider like for Grimlock alt mode. But yeah, no, that's all right. Comparing him to Studio Series 86 is maybe a little bit unfair because that's a fantastic figure. But yeah, you know, he's still cool. I still like that he's got the light up gimmick and all that. I think it's still a fun mode there. But yeah, I also worth mentioning is I did end up getting an upgrade kit for this guy a while. I think it was made by Iron Factory, where basically, I mean, this ends up transforming a little bit, so you don't have to parts form it, but it just kind of plugs into to these gaps here so that you can just get this section kind of pegged in like that. And then this kind of folds up to just give him a belly, which, you know, proportion-wise, he still looks a little bit weird in this mode, and that doesn't stay perfectly, but it definitely looks a little bit better where there's at least like a shell kind of covering up what's down there. But yeah, I don't know. Just worth mentioning. I'm not going to do the review with this on, but that is how I generally keep him, is with this upgrade kit attached, just because like, whew, that's challenging. Just really see an empty husk of a dinosaur there. But yeah, to get onto our articulation, to get onto transformation, first thing you want to do is split the tail back here, just like that, and then take these bits here, and they'll just double hinge, and you can fold out the feet as well. The tail bit will actually, there's like a little clip on the inside of the leg here that will just go over the hollow section of the tail like that, and then you kind of want to like bend the double joint of the knee up so that the actual knee joint sits here like that, and just do that on both sides there. And there we have his legs all done, simple. And for his arms here, you just want to use these joints to bring them out to the side, and then kind of unfold them at the elbow. You want to take this claw here and fold it up like that, which flips out the hand, which then allows you to compress this joint here, and then, you know, do whatever you want with the claws, if you want them like that, or if you want them, you know, more like that. I generally leave them like this, but, you know, with these ones, I flip them up so that you can actually hold the sword. But yeah, just do that on both sides there, just like that. And then we want to take this whole top section here. It will unclick. You want to take the dinosaur head and fold it down like that, and then this whole section will fold into the body, so the dinosaur head kind of sits on the inside. And then you can do whatever you want with the arms here. I generally just kind of fold them up like that. But yeah, there we have Fall of Cybertron Grimlock in his robot mode. And yeah, this is where I think this guy really shines. Like the proportions compared to how he looked in the game are not perfect. He's definitely like a little bit skinnier, but you know, just ignoring the source material and just looking at him as a figure in and of himself, I really do like the way this guy looks. I think that he's you know, he's got a nice kind of like bodybuilder proportion to him, where he's got like the huge upper body and then kind of like the, you know, skinnier waist section there. But yeah, no, I think he looks really cool. I love the head sculpt there. He's got another Autobot symbol on his chest, but it's actually the like Dino bots or the Lightning Strike color. I can't remember which one they referenced in the game, if it was the Dino with a Y bots or if it was the Lightning Strike Coalition, which, you know, both are from the comics. But yeah, he's got that symbol on his chest there, which is a pretty cool reference there. But yeah, no, I really like the way this guy looks. Definitely he's still a little bit hollow, like, you know, they filled in the legs a little bit, but, you know, there's still a lot of just kind of like empty gappiness in him, which, you know, doesn't really feel great. Also, he's got like like, people were complaining about this at the time. I don't think it really like actually makes it look any worse, but he's got like some like striations in the like plastic that make it look like, they recycled some plastic and mixed several plastics together, which again, I think just kind of ends up making him look a little bit metallic. So I don't think that it really affects him, but it's something that people were like irritated with at the time. I don't know, but worth mentioning. But yeah, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint, which can rotate around like that. He's got some nice light piping there, which works, yeah, pretty well. The shoulders here, they have these joints here, which are a little bit loose, unfortunately, that you can use as a little bit of a butterfly joint, but they kind of just do their own thing, honestly. And then they rotate around like that. The shoulder joint is actually like seated pretty low on him, so it's like it's not seated in the middle of this chunk like you'd sort of intuit it to be. It's really low, so when he lifts his arm up, it kind of makes his arms look like they're really short, but whatever. He's got a bicep swivel here. He's got about 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. The wrists are on a swivel, which is nice. And they also have this joint to go out to the side as well. It's on kind of a soft ratchet. Sometimes it's like more clicky than other times for whatever reason, but it works fairly well, although it can only go out that far, and then you're kind of seeing the how the joint works here and how it's actually attached very low, but whatever. Nothing at the waist. The hips are on swivels here. They're at kind of an angle, so when you swivel them, it does like do that like classic action figure thing of like having that Y stance where it kind of rotates separately out to the side. He does, you can kind of alleviate that with the thigh swivel and his hip joint there, but it is a little weird how it rotates up like that. It can also go out to the side only about that far, unfortunately. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got technically a double jointed knee. You're supposed to really only use this joint, which gets him only about that much. And then even with the second joint, it only really brings it to about 90. And then it kind of disjoints his knee here. I wish that these locked in a little bit better, because like when you're like messing with the knee joint, the secondary joint that's just for transformation always wants to kind of like move around. And you can see when I'm just like putting him down here is that it always just kind of like messes with the legs a little bit, and it's kind of annoying. And then when you try to push that joint in, like it just unclips the legs there, because like really I think that is where it ought to sit for it to like look good. But then since the legs are disconnected, he just like flops over, so it doesn't really work. But yeah, knee joints aren't great. And then for the feet, they're just kind of sculpted at a slight A stance, and then you can like fold in the toes a little bit. I don't know how helpful that really is for anything, but it's there. So yeah, okay articulation, definitely limited in some spots, but whatever. In terms of his weaponry, obviously you can bring back on his sword and his shield here, and the sword I feel like he looks pretty good holding. It's definitely not as big in proportion to him as it was in the game, but it still looks good for the figure. The shield looks a little bit ridiculous, since it's like, what are you protecting here with this? Literally just your forearm. It just looks a little silly. It doesn't come with like a handle or anything, so you can't have him hold it like straightforward like a shield. You have to peg it onto his arm. But like I said, for other figures, like smaller figures, I feel like these accessories look pretty cool, but for him they're a little bit small. Like the sword looks fine, it's just the shield looks a little bit ridiculous there. But yeah, that's what he looks like holding those. You can still use the light gimmick. I think it's really clever the way that they did this, so that the head kind of folds to the inside of the chest here, so that when you use the light gimmick, now it's kind of hard to see on camera, but it lights up his little Autobot symbol in these pieces and these pieces, sort of, which is a really, let me just turn off the, yeah, it doesn't really get as far up as the chest piece most of the time, but still, it's a cool idea to have that light work in both modes, even if it means that his head is just kind of like chilling in like a big empty void back here. I still think that is a pretty cool little gimmick there. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see he's a pretty tall robot. Obviously, he's a Voyager, he should be tall, but it's nice that he does, tower over like Deluxe's. Again, still, Grimlock I think is better as a leader class, but at least he was kind of a tall Voyager at the time, but that's what he looks like with him. Here he is again with the Power of the Primes Grimlock. You can see he's much taller than him, which is nice. So it's like, when I upgraded the Power of the Primes Grimlock, it's like, oh, okay, he kind of fits with all the other Dinobots, but he's a little bit shorter in terms of robot mode. I do think that this guy overall proportionally looks a little bit better than him, even if he's a little bit more like G1 coded. But then obviously not as good as Studio Series 86. He's much bigger being a leader class and looks more proportional and accurate to G1. Just fantastic figure. But yeah, that's what the two of them look like together. And yeah, that's about all there is to say about Fall of Cybertron Grimlock. He's definitely, you know, one of those figures from this line that like has a lot of merit. Like he's got some cool stuff going on, comes with cool accessories, which, you know, if you put them in like a smaller figure's hands, they look super cool. I feel like if you get them on like Sideswipe here, like that works. You know, I don't know, he's holding like Grimlock weapons, but still, it's you know, they're fun size accessories for like a deluxe figure. They just don't fit super well with him, in my opinion, at least the shield. But I love the light up gimmick. I think that he's got a lot of cool design choices. He just definitely feels like he's very, you know, plastic budget limited, because it's like, oh yeah, it's weird to see. It's like, oh, he's kind of hollow. He's got, you know, like a pretty simple transformation. A lot of the joints don't feel great, but he's also like decked out in like nice looking paint apps. So it's kind of like a weird dichotomy of like, oh, they had some budget, just not for plastic. Which is you know, it's always a talking point with this this era of Transformers. But still, he's a fun figure overall. Just definitely, you can see the corners that had to be cut there because of like the plastic issue at the time. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Fall of Cybertron Grimlock. Also, real quick, worth mentioning, sorry, I forgot to do this in the first recording, but if you were interested, this is how the Iron Factory kit kind of sits on him in robot mode. It kind of makes this section sit up a little bit. You can still use the light gimmick, but it doesn't like quite reach the sections as nicely, and they're like, you're left with a little gap up here. You can kind of fold it out more as like wings if you wanted to have like the wing Grimlock look, but I usually just kind of keep them compressed up to the body, and then to get them out of the way, I just put the claws over his shoulders, which I feel like looks kind of cool. But yeah, you know, it beefs him out a little bit, adds a little bit more kibble, but you know, that's basically what that looks like. Okay, now actually done.